Here with Stephen A. Smith, which I have to say, listening to your podcast now, do you feel freer to be able to talk about other things? Because obviously, I love hearing your takes on sports, but to hear you talk politics and pop culture, like, is that refreshing for you to be able to spread out in that way?
Well, for me, it's what I wanted to do. It's what I've always wanted to do. I certainly understand that that's not necessarily the right place to do those kind of things for ESPN. It's a sports network. And I remember specifically before 2020, around 2017, 2018, when so many things were going on and Jimmy Pitaro came in as president of ESPN, you know, his whole thing was to get us as a network back and focused on giving the sports fans what they come to ESPN to see. And if we're being, you know, as somebody that's considered the face of the network, it's my obligation to highlight when the boss is right. We did do that. We got away to some degree from giving the audience what they came to ESPN to see. So I was in complete support of him in terms of redirecting our focus back to making sure that when folks come to a sports network, by and large, that's exactly what the hell you're giving them. But in the same breath, I think that when you walk away from that to those particular channels and you're out here living your own life, you're paying taxes, you're dealing with crime, you're dealing with so many different things that are going on in the real world, I wouldn't call it an obligation, but it is a good thing to do to show that you're socially conscious, you're paying attention to what's going on, and you're not one-dimensional in terms of what you think about and what you feel. And so I like the idea of having a platform like my podcast / show where over iHeartRadio, over YouTube, I'm really showing the world what's on my mind on a day-to-day basis that in some cases extend beyond the parameters of sports.
Is it different going viral to a new crowd when you have an opinion that's not sports? Because I'm sure you say something sports, it goes viral. It's the same people yelling at you. But I see you go viral for all kinds of takes now.
It's crazy. You know, it's a lot of fun when I'm doing pop culture and entertainment for the most part. It wasn't fun when I had to talk about P. Diddy. It wasn't fun when I had to talk about Will Smith. It wasn't fun when I had to talk about Jada Pinkett, but it was the news, and I thought that it was important to touch on those things to provide a perspective, because I'm not out here trying to insult or character assassinate anybody. But it's important that when somebody does something wrong, including myself, that we're willing to highlight and point out what you did wrong there. I think that a lot of times in our society, what makes us very, very cruel and I would say irresponsible is when we use any little thing as a means to character assassinate somebody. You make a mistake and that's who you are. You make a mistake, that's who you are. No, it isn't. It's what you did in this particular instance. So what? You made that mistake. Somebody points it out. Tomorrow you do something good, and we'll point that out. And that's what I try to do, because as a journalist, as a personality, as somebody that's been in media for the last 30 years, I know the responsibility that I have, and one of the biggest responsibilities that I have is to be fair and to make sure that what you do in your worst possible moment doesn't define who you are. And a lot of times you have people, particularly in the world of politics, well, if you're black and you're talking about somebody that's a Republican, well, they must be a racist. No, they're not. That's wrong. Don't do that. You know, you disagree with them on this issue. Attack that issue.
Well,
now, if there's a body of work,
there's no nuance anymore.
If there's
ever.
a body of work that is indicative of what you are, then that's different. But on a case-by-case basis, and the same thing with, you know, on the liberal side, you know, when conservatives say certain things, I'm not about that. It's about, okay, today this is what the story is. Tomorrow it might be something else. Next week it might be something else. Let's go on a case-by-case basis, because we can all, I think we'll all find out we got common ground, and we'll get far more of us would get along than people realize. I truly believe that.
All right, 3 final things. Olympics first. The 2024 basketball team, do you feel like they did what they went out to do? Serbia game was obviously pretty close.
Yep.
Did you expect there to be close games? And then secondly, who's the 2028 team?
I expected the games to be relatively close. I didn't expect it to be the nail-biter that it was against Serbia. I didn't expect them to struggle against France the way that they did. And then Steph Curry exploded in both games. I expected Steph Curry to look better prior to the semifinals in a gold medal game. But that didn't happen. I expected Jason Tatum to play more. That didn't happen. There were a couple of things that you could look at. But overall, bottom line is, USA went to France to win a gold medal, and they brought home the gold medal. So they did their thing. As it pertains to 2028, you won't see LeBron there. You probably won't see KD there. You won't see Steph there. But I do think you'll see Anthony Edwards. I do think you'll see Jason Tatum.
Will he go?
I think, yeah, because I don't think Steve Kerr will be coaching in 2028. I don't think he'll be coaching the team. I don't think Jason Tatum is going if Steve Kerr's coaching. And I wouldn't blame him after that experience, to be quite honest with you, because listen, Steve Kerr is one of the great, great coaches this game has ever seen. But there's no excuse in hell that you can walk up to Jason Tatum before a game and say, I might not have time to play you today. This is one of the greatest players in the world and a reigning defending NBA champion who's been a first-team All-NBA player the last 3 years. And by the way, two guys in Drew Holiday and Derek White who deferred to him for 82 games during the regular season and the postseason. You finding time for them, but not him. Jason Tatum could play 4 different positions on a basketball court. How do you excuse not finding time for him? And that's why he looked so bad when you did put him in, because he never knew when he was going to play. And he couldn't catch any rhythm or anything like that. So I look at it from that standpoint, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, they came home with the gold, and that's what matters most.
All right, last question.
Stephen A. Smith, you talk about getting along and all of us getting along. I want to talk about my Dallas Cowboys. Yep. I want truth. I want the truth, Stephen A. Smith. I want the real, honest opinion of my Dallas Cowboys this season.
They're going to suck this year. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to have a tough time making the playoffs. And I think even if they do make the playoffs, they're going to go home early like they always do. You got Mike McCarthy there. I think this will probably be his last year coaching. It wouldn't surprise. I think that Dak Prescott is going to get re-signed. I don't think he deserves $60 million. I don't think when you've been a quarterback for 8 years and you got 2 playoff victories to show for it that you deserve $60 million. I just don't believe that. I'm talking about $60 million per year. I don't believe that. But Jerry Jones will probably end up having to pay him anyway. And I think that in a hard cap league that is the National Football League, I think one of the changes that needs to take place is that we need to see NFL teams become more sticklers for giving quarterbacks this kind of money, because the money that you give them costs you and prevents you from giving others money. And there's other people that deserve some of that cash. Listen, the quarterback is the most important position, but the caveat that we've got to add to it is that if you produce, if you don't, listen, there's a lot of quarterbacks that can get half of Dak Prescott's dollars and still win 2 playoff games in 8 years. And so I look at it from that standpoint, and I'm about production. You got to be able to produce and get it done. And if you don't get it done, I'm not saying you deserve to be broke. I'm not saying that you don't deserve to be in the league. I'm not saying you don't deserve to be paid. But we don't need to be spending that inordinate amount of money on quarterbacks that don't know how to win in January. We don't need to be doing that.
It's like the pulpit. They're cheering out there.
Yeah,
All right.
I hear that.
Stephen A. Smith Show on iHeartRadio. Also, by the way, congrats, New York Times bestseller.
Thank you.
That's A+. A memoir, Straight Shooter, a memoir of second chances and first takes. Big fan. Appreciate your time.
Appreciate
Stephen
it.
A. Smith,
Stephen A.
everybody.
Smith.
Stephen A. Smith, everybody. Woo!